Good evening, everyone. Tara Lynn here, and we are going to do the Autumn Bouquet Beginner's Bliss. I've got the picture up in the corner. The colors that I'm going to use today are Fawn, Hauser Light Green, Hauser Medium Green. You can also use Hauser Dark Green. We just want something a little darker than that light green. Fresh Mango and Canyon Orange is our color palette. I've got my background painted black. It is about just a little over, the surface itself is about 5 1/4 inches. My black circle is 5 inches. I'm okay if I go just past my circle. So you want a similar size round surface. You can use a square and just do the round as well. So don't be afraid to change up the surface. And I've got my handy dandy workshop guide. So let's get started. All right, we're going to do our center dot with a 10mm tool and Fawn. After I made this pattern, I really liked it, and I've made it a few different times with different colors, and it turns out beautiful every time. My first dot there, and I've already got a splat. That is definitely a dog hair. I try so hard to keep the dog hair in my house under control. Doesn't always work out. All right, so 10mm center. Next, I'm going to grab a 1mm. You could probably get away with 1.5mm. I'm going to use my darker green, and we're going to do a ring of 16. So I'm going to do my main 4. Halfway in between each of those. And then 1 in between each of those for a total of 16. If you are new to following me, I like to broadcast on YouTube because you can pause, you can change the speed, rewind, anytime you need to. So if you're working at a different speed than I am, do not be afraid to do that. So that was the darker green, 1mm, a ring of 16. And I'm going to get a 3mm tool. I'm going to do another ring of 16. This time it's going to be offset, so it's going to go in between the previous row. And when I do this, I like to skip a space just to help me keep it spaced evenly. And then I'll go back and fill those in. So these go in the spaces. going to continue using that 3mm tool. I'm going to switch to my Canyon Orange, the darker orange. I'm going to do another set of 16. This time it goes on the lines. So I've got my 8. Now I'm going to go back and add 8 more. We're going to create 2 more rings before we really do any patterning. So the next ring is going to be 4mm with the fresh mango, which is the lighter orange. Again, offset beads, so this time it goes in the spaces. This tool has seen better days. I haven't cleaned it off in a while. I'm going to switch to my other 4mm tool. Maybe I am. I seem to have misplaced it, so maybe I'm not. Ugh. Oh no. Well, it looks like for now that's the only one I got, so. Oh, here it is. Found it. Phew. All right. Sticking with 4mm, we're going to do another row offset with Fawn, which is a nice neutral brown. And these dots go on the lines. Really, you can make absolutely beautiful things by just creating rings of offset dots. I see a lot of dot mandala artists do that. All right, next I'm going to use a 2mm stylus. If you don't have a 2, I would go down to a 1.5mm. These are better if they're a little smaller. 2.5 I think would be too big. So Hauser light, so that's our light green. And what I'm going to do, you'll see I've come to the second ring on my stencil. If you're not exactly where I am, that is totally fine. But just find yourself kind of a visual marker, and we are just pulling swipes inward, one in each space with the lighter green. Then I'm going to switch to my 1.5mm. So I'm going down in size just a little bit, and I'm going to use the dark green. And on each side of these, I'm going to create a swipe. So dip and swipe, then dip and swipe. And these I give a little curve to, so I guess they're swoops. I always call swipes the straight ones. The curvy one, I call those swoops. So I'm going to do that all the way around. So dip and swoop, dip and swoop. My daughter is clanging and banging. I don't know what she's up to. Actually, I do know what she's up to. She is cleaning. She's in a cleaning mood, and I ain't stopping it. So if you hear any banging, vacuuming, or general craziness, that's what's going on over here. I love this effect that it makes with the swipes and the swoops. It fills in a lot of space really well, but it also kind of feels like a little burst, and I love that. Right, next I'm going to get my 5mm tool. 5mm is a funny size. It's not in all sets. If you don't have a 5, I would recommend going down to a 4. Maybe you could get away with a 6, but you might have to get really squishy with it. So 5mm tool, I'm going to use my dark orange, and we're going to make 16 dots. We're going to do these on the line, so it's in between the swipes in the same ray as those fawn dots. So a dot on every line. Again, I don't know why my brain likes to do this, but I like to skip one and then go back and fill it in. I don't know if it actually helps me keep them more evenly spaced, but I feel like it does. All right, so we've got another ring of 16. Next to each one of these dots, or around each one of these dots, I am going to put a dot in the center and then a swoop on each side. So I'm going to use my 1.5mm tool. I'm going to do all my center dots first. But basically what we're doing is a 1.5mm center dot and then a swoop to the right and a swoop to the left. So if you like to do the complete thing first, that's fine. If you want to do all the center dots like I do, that's fine as well. I like to do these first. This fresh mango is such a bright, vivid color, but it plays so well with these other muted tones. But what I love about it is when you're using it with these muted tones, when it's finished, there's just kind of a pop to the piece, but it's not overwhelming like using all brights. Not that I don't like all brights, because I absolutely do. right, next we're going to continue building out this petal. I'm going to get my 2.5mm tool. We're going to use the dark orange and we're going to walk the dots on each side. So I'm going to start with a 2.5mm center. And then when I walk the dots, I am going to switch down to a 2. If you want it to be a little fuller, you could continue walking with the 2.5mm. All right, so 2.5mm center dot, and then we're going to dip and walk the dots on each side. I'm going to do all the right side, and then I'm going to come back and do all the left.
Are you missing this?
When you finish those petals, we're going to get our 6mm tool out. We are going to put a fawn dot in the spaces, so 16 and one in every space. Then I'm going to get an 8mm tool, and I'm going to use my darker green. We're going to do a ring of 16 offsets. So these are going to go on the lines in between. Take your time with larger dots. They tend to have more bubbles underneath and squish out in funny waves. Next, we're going to replicate the same petal that we did down here. So the first thing we're going to do is a dot in the middle and swipes on each side. I'm using a 2.5mm stylus. I'm going to use the light green. This has been sitting, so I'm just going to pull off that little film that was on top. Ugh. All right. I'm going to do all my center dots, 2.5mm, light green. don't know if that tool's working real good. So 2.5 millimeter center dots. And then I'm going to add swoops on each side. You can use the same size tool. I feel like you can go a little bit farther with your swoops if you go a little bit slower. I am always really bad at trying to go fast. Then we're going to do petals, we're going to do walk the dots just like this previous petal. And so for that, we're going to use Hauser medium or Hauser dark, the darker green. And my center dot, I'm going to do 3 millimeters. Just mixing in just the tiniest little tinge of water because my paint, when it sits out, I've got a fan on in here and it's just evaporating quickly. All right, so I've got my center dot. Then I'm going to go down to a 2.5 millimeter. You could use 2.5. You could use 3 if you wanted it to be more chunky. And I'm just going to walk the dots on each side. And green is being uncooperative. All right, we are going to do our last ring here, which is going to be some outward swipes. So you can decide if you want your swipes to end at your, like I have a black ring. Or like I'm going to go all the way to the edge of my piece. Just depending on what you're working with, decide where you want those to stop. I'm going to use a 2.5 millimeter tool and my dark orange. And I'm going to go in between the petals that we just created. And I'm going to swipe outward. So you do that all the way around, that's 16 swipes. Then we're going to use our 1.5 millimeter tool. We're going to use the light orange, the fresh mango, and we're going to add 2 swipes on each side. You're going to see me just pulling some of these just a little bit. Some of them cut off on me, which isn't too big of a deal because we are going to add a large dot at the end where they all meet, but I'm going to make sure they all get there. I'm going to use the same tool, 1.5 millimeters, and Fawn. Make sure I got enough in here. I think I do. And we're just going to add one more set of double swipes, one on each side. So there are the Fawn swipes, swoop swipes. I put a little bit of it's kind of halfway between a swoop and a swipe. You can do it straight or you can add a little curve to it, whatever you prefer. And then the last step to the base of this design is a 4mm dot in our lighter green, right in the center of our swoop. So for me, that's the very edge of our pattern. This is the completed base of the design, so you can add top dots however you would like. I'm going to go ahead and top dot along with you on video this time. If you want things to pop, you can use more of the fresh mango. Anytime you use your background on the top, it's going to add a nice, a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to use? Totally having a brain burp here. Contrast. Gosh, that took a long time. It'll add a lot of contrast. So if you really want things to be bright and poppy, use fresh mango, use black. If you want to tone it down a little bit, use a little more of your muted green. So that's kind of the look that you'll get. I'm going to add a 6mm black top dot in the center. Now, in order to do top dots, you do want your design to be pretty dry. So I dry mine with a hairdryer type drying tool. On top of these fresh mangoes, I'm going to add some canyon orange. And anytime you top dot, you just want to go down in size. In the next ring, we've got those fawn dots. I'm going to add black. I've got a ring of the Canyon Orange here. I'm going to add some fresh mango on top of that. And the next ring of Fawn, I'm going to do black. And then in this dark green, I'm going to do light green. And there you have it. The Autumn Bouquet Beginner's Bliss design. This one is really fun to do in different colors. So if you have created this design with me, I would love to see your version. Please share it in our Facebook group or in the share space. And I will see you next week for our creative challenge. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Happy fall. I'll see you next